everyone. Welcome to the second part of the conversation that we started last week, COVID-19, the HR response. And I'm delighted that all of you who've made the time this afternoon to be able to come in on board. We have a very stellar panel here, and I'm going to introduce them in just a bit. Here's some housekeeping announcements, just so that we have a great experience with the webinar here today. All your mics and your videos need to be off. We will, once the conversation starts, the host of the meeting, the administrator, will have everything switched off, but we want to make sure there is no noise coming into the webinar that spoils your experience of learning this afternoon. So I'm going to ask you to proactively do this, else the host will do it in some time. This is in the interest of being able to make sure that there is no interruption to the conversation we're having here today. Now, we do want your interaction, so please keep going with the chat box on your right. So you have chat written at the bottom of your screen, activate that, so that you have a box on your right where you can continuously communicate, not just with the panelists, but also with your co-participants at the webinar. What we're inviting here today is both questions and comments. So there's a sign saying Q&A at the bottom of your screen. Please use that to be able to post your questions. I'm the moderator for the day, and my name is Dr. Sujaya Banerjee. I'm the founder of the Learning and OD Roundtable. I will be handling your questions as you post them under Q&A. We'll also periodically pick some threads from the chat, so keep the chat as vibrant as you can. We will have a running time of about 40 minutes on our conversation here with this very learned and very erudite panel. As we bring in questions, we will bring in whoever asks the question also in the central screen where you can share space, and we will have your video and your mic switched on so that you can directly ask your question to whichever panelist you want to direct your question to. So we do want interaction, and I know that we cannot have a vibrant conversation unless you bring all of you in. So we'll get started with a few questions, and then I'm very excited to be able to call you in individually to be able to interact directly with this very outstanding panel. So with that, everyone, one more time, welcome to this webinar brought to you by the Learning and OD Roundtable. I have two announcements to make before we get down to the main crux of the crisis that we're talking about today. One is that the Learning and OD Roundtable have put together a very outstanding HR response team. This is a pro bono service offered by expert consultants and expert practitioners who are available to you should you have any dilemma or a query, just want another perspective or a point of view. Please feel free to be able to reach out to us through the documents segment of this webinar. We've already emailed stuff to you around the HR response team. So please use those services should you want an alternate, learned and informed perspective. So the HR response team. The second and more important announcement I want to make here today is that the Learning and OD Roundtable has partnered with KPMG for a very outstanding HR practices survey. I recommend strongly that all of you participate. Tomorrow is the last day for this very outstanding survey that does not take more than 20 minutes to half an hour to be able to fill out. Please use the link that's been sent to all of you to be able to participate in this survey. And I'm sure you will all receive in return a best practices survey report from 150 organizations. I mean, this has been a very unprecedented, very incredible time. So I'm sure you're waiting to learn from the practices of other organizations on how they handle various aspects of managing their people during this crisis. So KPMG's survey has been, the link's been sent to you. Please participate and help us put this survey report together, which I'm sure the KPMG team will be happy to be able to return to you. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this webinar. It's part 2 of COVID-19, the HR response. I think none of us have any doubts in our mind. We're almost in the 4th week of the lockdown, and undoubtedly this has been unprecedented, incredible. This pandemic, I think even as we spoke about disaster management or we spoke about emergency responses in our own organizations, I'm quite sure we had not considered a global pandemic. Most organizations had not. Invariably, a lot of organizations on a back foot with what ensued, despite having knowledge of this pandemic since the December of last year. somewhere, we are diehard optimists and imagine that it's not going to really come in to impact us. And I think a lot of us, sort of surprised, with the lockdown, with the decision of the government asking everyone to work from home. And I think what has ensued has been a time of that's been very demanding, full of fear, full of anxiety, because of various reasons. We're in the midst of a global pandemic. This has disrupted the lives of millions of people all across the world, infected many people from across the world, disrupted businesses and economies all around the world. These are very, very, very incredible times. I teach leadership, and when I speak to audiences, and I spoke to audiences in the past, and we spoke about being in a turbulent business environment, or we spoke about VUCA times, you still have some people scratch their head to say, what exactly is so VUCA about my life? I mean, I work for the same organization, I come to the same building, I come to the same office, I see the same boss, I see the same co-workers. And I think particularly for those who've been in tenured jobs, there's always been a bit of wonder with what really is so unprecedented. And, I mean, sure, we may have seen businesses, fluctuate in terms of their fortunes, but, what is so unprecedented and what is so volatile and uncertain and ambiguous? I think after what's happened right now in the last 3 months, 4 months, if you want to call it that, I'm not sure anyone's going to ever be confused about what VUCA really means. I mean, this has impacted every single living person's life at this point. So I want to be able to, at this stage, draw your attention as panelists to the very first question that I have. And I'm going to try and direct this to the practitioners first, and which is not to say that the other veterans we have in this group are not practitioners. They're consultants and they help practitioners very much to perform. But I'm going to try and ask, this question is directed to Raju, to Milind, to Rajesh. So I don't know who wants to go first out of the three of you. I want to be able to ask you, we talk about emergency response systems, we talk about business continuity planning, we talk about, crisis management teams. What is your own sense on how much of all this has really worked out? Because it looks like most of it is part of what you need to be able to provide to boards to keep them happy that you have a long-term perspective of risk. I think a lot of organizations were scampering around, struggling on various fronts, did not know how to roll back, did not know how to mobilize their resources, did not know how to get people functional back for days on end. So I want to be able to get your own perspective on how well prepared, and I don't mean only from the people perspective. I'm asking a more broad-ended sort of question around how well were businesses prepared in your estimate in terms of emergency response, crisis response. I'll talk about crisis communication later. I just want to know how well prepared were we to be able to manage a risk of this kind.
So, Sujai, can I go in first?
Yes.
Basically, since we are in the pharmaceutical business with a very long, value chain, a lot of our things, we also keep monitoring what's really happening. And service to patients and caring for life is really the primary goal and motto of Cipla as a company. And it has not now, it's been there for many, many decades. In terms of business continuity, given the supply chain, and one thing which is very clearly emerging in this is the large interdependencies that businesses have amongst each other and globally. So the thing is, I would say that our leadership was sensing this even when this thing was happening in China. Since a lot of our APIs are, we do have dependencies there as well. So we were monitoring and, closely doing the situation, because for us, it is very important to have the inventory build up for the required materials. I would say we were reasonably prepared from a business standpoint in terms of dealing with this, and we were better equipped to handle this situation, so that there are no shortages of the life-saving medicines that patients depend on us for. The other most important thing, and I think you alluded to it in your conversation earlier, is about preparedness of people to switch over. It was almost like an overnight switch. So while a lot of companies were still contemplating whether to announce work from home, we took the lead and we said, let us start working from home. At least we will provide social distancing. And even before the sanitization measures were actually introduced, almost somewhere end Jan or early Feb, we had started, using hand sanitizers, providing all of that. I must say our IT team really rose to the occasion very fast. So we announced our work from home from 17th March onwards. And in a matter of, so they spent the previous weekend, preparing and enabling all the laptops, configuring them, and getting everyone comfortable with Microsoft Team meetings and Zoom meetings. So this is just to say that how we can really, start preparing for this. Of course, as we go along, and we were very clear that we have to take each day as it comes, because new things was unfolding. But I must say one thing which I'm extremely proud about: the way our country has come together, the way our leaders have come together, keeping their political differences aside. I think it is so exemplary that I feel very, very proud about. And the way we all collectively as a country are dealing with this, of course, we'll always have someone stepping aside, once in a while. But I think we all as a country have a lot to feel proud about in terms of how we are dealing with this and coming together. And there are many, many examples that I can share with you as we go along, in terms of the responses that people have done in this kind of a situation.
Good point. Rajesh, would you want to respond to this next?
Yeah, thanks,
Rajesh?
Vijay. I mean, can you hear me?
Yes,
Just
yes.
doing a
Now we
quick
can.
check.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Sujay. Thanks so much. I would concur with what Raju said. I think what we responded also was first for the cause of humanity. I think no one prepares oneself for an adversity of this kind of magnitude. So obviously, I think a lot of surprises did crop up. But I think the first one, from a leadership standpoint, was to really stand up to the cause of humanity. I think that confidence that one needed to express to say that we will sort this out, and we will stand together and cohesively. Don't worry about it. We're getting all the facts right. At that stage, mind you, I mean, none of us knew really, which direction to go. We knew that the world has changed 90 degrees, but none of us knew in terms of, how to respond to it. So coming together in terms of a collective solidarity as far as the leadership was concerned, so that there's one single voice, was very essential. Standing up with the cause of humanity was the second one. So far as business continuity process and disaster recovery and all that bit, I think we gathered a few things and put it together. Fortunately for us, we have an integrated facility where all our group companies in one single large facility where 20,000 people work. There are other plants as well, but that place particularly, we have a good, which we call essential services, and they're geared to handle a lot of scale as far as magnitude is concerned. One of the reasons why I say that is because it's in the seismic zone. It's a seismic zone where we started everything after the entire Kutch was wiped off. So an adversity is something that we are used to in a different manner. I mean, not a biological one that we're seeing today. So some kind of preparedness was there, but by no means want to say that we were reasonably prepared. So it all came together, starting with the leadership, taking the communication to the last mile, saying that definitely reassuring people as far as their protection of employment was concerned, protection of the salary was concerned, ensuring that it will get rolled out. The first few days was all around humanity, getting people together, aligning ourselves, and putting our thoughts together and messaging across. I think that's exactly what we did. Yeah, in terms of preparedness, I would say I think we were there at about 40%. If you were to do a complete check of where we are, but I think that's a real test as to how we can build on from here.
And are there lessons learned for the next time? And we hope there's no next time. But are there lessons learned on?
Hundred
I'm sure
percent,
there are. I
hundred
mean,
percent.
yeah.
Undoubtedly, there are massive building blocks that's coming into place. A lot of institutionalization is happening right now as we talk. I mean, plenty of processes are getting reinforced. I think this is a massive learning. I mean, no one wishes that we see one more of this kind,
Yes.
but I guess the world has definitely changed 90 degrees, and
Yes.
we all realize that work is just a small subset of life
Yes.
and how important life is. I think that's the biggest realization and reflection. And
Yes.
we all realize that, let's work towards that. So the
Yes.
social factors have become manifold and more important than the business side of the house.
Yeah. Yeah. So true. I'm going to turn this over to Milind. Milind, I said to you at the start of the webinar that we asked around saying, tell us about people who've managed this, this crisis well. And we got more than one source saying, speak to Milind Apte of SIAT because they've done an incredible job. Tell us a bit about what you did. I mean, there would be great insights on best practices there.
Yeah, thanks, Sujaya. So I think the first thing which was important was to calm the nerves of our employees. So I think we looked at employees, we looked at employee families because that's integral part of the ecosystem. And we looked at all the stakeholders who are also integral part of our ecosystem. So I think we decided to address this ecosystem very, very quickly. We thought cash flow and business crisis will come later. So first we went out. We told people that there's a crisis, don't worry about it. We are confident we'll get you out of it. First, nobody will lose your job. You are part of our large family. We are with you and we'll make sure we only prosper after this entire crisis. So Anant frontled, our managing director and the owner did several conversations and communication. Another big thing we did was we have a chief fitness officer on board. And what we quickly did is we connected with almost 1,000 families and we went right into their kitchen and we actually advised them on what to do and what not to do. So spouses, kids who are having a lot of anxieties with regard to what to eat, what not to eat, and a lot of scare around coronavirus. I think we managed to straight go inside the kitchen and kind of recommend a recipe which will build their immune system. A lot of questions we received from the spouses and it was good to address those questions. I think that calmed the nerves quite a bit. Then we actually rolled out emergency advisory services because what we realized is doctors aren't easily available. And even if you go with a cold and flu or cold and you are sneezing, you are straight referred to for a virus test. So we actually had our chief fitness officer responding to such panic calls 24/7. And the kind of calls we received and, simple things, but we are able to address them. We went and hired a fitness trainer. So we got one of the best fitness trainers on board who fortunately had the capability of editing videos every day and put up a session. And we engaged close to 4,000 people every day through exercise format in the morning. So 8:30 every morning, we threw a challenge, exercise challenge. And 8:30 to 9, people were engaged in a form of exercise. And that's continuing. And that will continue definitely till 3rd of May. And we had obviously counselors to manage anxiety, which people typically face during such circumstances. To add to all of this, we have an initiative called Pulse. And the idea of this initiative is to build strong relationship with employees and their families. So actually every manager reached out to 5 to 7 employees and their families twice in a week to make sure that any anxiety is settled at the grassroots level. So I think very, very broadly, Sujaya, these are some of the initiatives. And apart from loads of communication, so believe me, communication, and we are absolutely over communicated, especially on the security job loss part, but no job loss part.
Yeah, I'm just going to ask you an add-on question there, especially because, we have, very dismaying examples of poor communication inside the organizations. So I'd like you to spend a little bit of time around this crisis communication. You said you over-communicated. Do you want to talk a bit about that? Because, I'm sure the audience would like to know what is the meaning of good crisis communication? What did your leaders really tell your people?
So I think clearly we told them that this is a crisis where entire world is suffering. So this is not unique to us. So don't worry about it, right? We are in this together. You have been a part and parcel of building what we are today for years. So please do not worry about what will happen to you. So I think cut that risk first. Then we spoke about the methods and what we are doing as an organization to combat this crisis. We spoke clearly about cutting down our expenses. We spoke about picking the social cause over individual aspirations. And we appealed to people to actually work as a team in this crisis, right? So to an extent where, some of our conversations before the webinar today, people who are not used to work from home, people who are production supervisors, what do they do at home? But we went to the extent of understanding their concerns through communication and actually providing them a workable solution and also a framework around what you can do through the day as you connect with all of us. We spoke to kids, we spoke to spouses, we counseled them on the kind of challenge they may face in the relationship because all of them are together.
Yes.
So the kind of patience, the kind of maturity which is expected to be demonstrated. So some kind of education also we tried to actually give. Managers made sure, as I told you, twice in a week, I think managers made sure that the reach out is beyond business to solve any problem which the employee may be facing on the ground. And Anand himself, every 15 days came on a call. And believe me, if his brief was 15 minutes, question and answers went on till 1 hour, 1.5 hours. And he addressed every question patiently. Let it be business, let it be work from home, or let it be job security. I think all of this has helped us big time. We have got a number of responses from our employees and very positive responses, I would say. So,
Right.
so very, very broadly, this is what we have done. And we have never ever spoken about the crisis. I think we have consistently brought the point on board that we are in this together. The entire world is suffering, but our foundation is strong. Fundamentals are strong. We'll come out of it. Don't worry about it. So.
Right.
So Sujaya, I would want to just
Yes.
share a very different perspective and a different
Yes.
experience here. Right?
Yes.
As you all know, that pharmaceuticals is part of the essential services.
Yes.
But let me just share with you the experiences that one goes through. So when the lockdown was announced on 22nd March, and for the first 2 or 3 days, while all the administrative machinery was getting their act around to really understand what to do and how to manage, and they were just enforcing the lockdown very, very seriously, we had a different kind of a challenge. We had a challenge where employees wanted to come to work, but there was a fear of the police people in terms of, getting beaten up. But I must say the people were very brave and they did step out of their house. And while we were able to, work with the government machinery to get all the curfew passes and all of that issued, which take a couple of days, our people did step out. So it's a very different kind of a challenge where you have to get people to step out of their house and come to work. And we have a lot of superheroes and, super women who've actually done that. But what is very interesting, which I want to share with you, is that at this time, people want to hear leaders talk and what they wanted to do. So what we did is we actually had a webinar where all the management council members got together. We had the highest number of logins ever. We had about 17,000 people log in for this 1.5 hour open chat. People could ask any kind of questions. And we had more than 1,000 questions that people asked in that 1.5 hour.
Who was answering these questions?
The entire management council. So we are 9 of us. We were all there, including our CEO, our chief manufacturing officer. Everyone was actually there to answer all their questions, including myself, our CFO, and people could ask anything and everything. So it is very important to understand and be out there to help them understand anything that they wanted to ask. So that worked very well, along with the all other communications that Milind also alluded to. But it's important to communicate. So we have a communication plan. And every day we have to communicate with our people.
That's super. That's really, really heartening to know. I'm going to now turn over to Akhil and Arun and Vishali. And my question is that, to these assurances on job security and the rest of that, less than 2 weeks into the lockdown, we were already hearing about job losses left, right, and center. There is a significant 136 million jobs estimated to be lost over this lockdown and over the COVID-19 crisis. We now heard some very dismaying information just yesterday around huge job losses in the media industry. I just want to get your reactions to this. Are organizations not able to sustain even for 2 weeks? What exactly is going on? These are all large organizations. Some of them have booked profits in the last financial year. What's really going on? Is there a mechanism to be able to? And I'm sure they have business compulsions, but I'm just trying to understand from you your reactions to seeing this kind of extent of job losses, and that too so early into the lockdown. I mean, we've not even waited a month to be able to estimate whether we can or we can't. Akhil, do you want to go first?
Sure, Sujaya. I think there's a question about job loss. and assuring employment has two angles to it, two edges actually. And having gone through dot-com burst in 2008, while it is very natural for us to step forward and assure that there'll be no job losses, and I understand what Rajesh and Milind were mentioning, they meant it that way because they have that under control. But there are many medium-sized and different organizations who have absolutely no idea about the affordability. So my view on communication is be realistic. Do not try to sound very optimistic in sense there will be no job cut, there will be no salary cut, life will be as usual. And the reason I'm saying this, because this particular crisis, nobody knows the end date, not even estimate. Now, your question that don't we have resilience in organizations to sustain for 1 month, 2 months? Of course we have. These are the short-term decisions some organizations are taking advantage of the situation and making their books balance and show their right faces to the stakeholders. The point here is to plan for the mid-term future. And I would look at it this way, that while we can guarantee salaries and jobs, say up to say 2 months or 3 months forward looking, which we should, and that is the buffer that every organization does have, small or big, and exactly what Rajesh and Milind have done. But suppose, God forbidding this was to carry on in future, I would start looking at one option, that we guarantee something called subsistence earning, which would be about 60% of your earning. 40% would be kept in a deferred pay as an account to be taken in future when things improve. I think somewhere this will balance the business requirement as well as the employee. And before this call, Rajesh Padmanabhan was very rightly mentioned that we should not talk about employees and HR, but look at the business. So somewhere this subsistence earning, if that can be worked out and be openly transmitted and communicated to employees, that we will pay you enough to survive, a little over, but it's not going to be party time. So that angle. Second, from the idea of jobs, there are two very separate entities which we are actually forgetting. This is a time to maintain organization reputation. And it's not to be taken for granted. This is one of the time values and reputations to be protected. So April being the month when the fresh graduates from management schools and engineering schools are entering the market, they are in doldrums as to what will happen to the career. Many organizations have said, oh, we'll see about that, we'll postpone. But if any organization is thinking that they will cancel offers to these young students and say, okay, times are bad, we can't help it, they will pay a price in future for not being an attractive employer. Short-term gains will give them long-term damages in future. And that is why somewhere a sensible approach to make sure that you have enough resilience within the organization to absorb shock of this type, not forever, but you cannot take shortcut to say times have changed, sorry, job cuts, and will not honor our appointments and offers made to young students. To the second, internally, I would say we should be more liberal, opposite of what we are talking in this forum, to our people who are very critical for rebound.
Right.
We cannot afford to lose them. So that is where, if money has to be used sensibly, we must make sure that that particular category of people whom we identify very judiciously are kept with us, because without that, our rebound will be impossible. So we must not just say save costs now,
right,
but sure that we have ability to rebound with the type of people that we have. And without them, we will not rebound despite all the dreaming and wishes.
Right. I'm going to turn this over to Vishali Dongri, and she deals with as part of KPMG Human Capital Practice, deals with various organizations who she's advising. Vishali, tell me, what is your advice to organizations? Are there creative ways to be able to reduce costs rather than early in the game have these knee-jerk reactions where you've already called out how many numbers you're going to reduce? I'm sure you have people reaching out to you, asking you for solutions around this. Is there any advice you'd like to give the audiences on how to go about this?
Thanks, Sujaya. I think Akhil made a very pragmatic and excellent point. The entire idea, I think what I'll do is go a little bit to the big picture, what organizations are doing.
Hmm.
In my experience, different sectors are reacting to this very differently.
Hmm.
Like the three esteemed panelists we have, their sector is the major hit,
Yes.
where employees need to be around and
Hmm.
how things are to be controlled.
Hmm.
But there are other sectors which
Hmm.
can actually work from home,
Yes.
which can operate with gig workforce, which can also operate with liquid workforce. So I'll just tell you what it means.
Hmm.
First of all, what organizations have done, they have taken a budget in a looked at the budget very differently.
Hmm.
So usually in April you come up with a forecast and you create your new strategy.
Hmm.
And right now what organizations have done,
Hmm.
they've created strategies for 3 or 4 different scenarios:
Hmm.
COVID highest impact, COVID midterm impact, and COVID very
Got
less impact. And the fourth one is the forecast and strategy for business as usual.
it. Hmm.
Basis that, the entire workforce planning is getting done.
Hmm.
And there is you, I mean, softer aspect are brilliantly done by organization we never thought we'll be able to do. But
Hmm.
even the way we used to look at our strategic intent is completely changed.
Hmm.
Now what organizations are doing and also asking us whether, let's say, some of these aspect
Hmm.
can be business as usual.
Hmm.
What I mean is, many of our workforce is working from home today.
Hmm.
Can looking at a future operating model, can it completely change and some of them can still work from home in
Hmm.
long term business as usual situation?
Hmm.
Organizations are also doing something very interesting,
Hmm.
that is, they're calling it something known as families of roles which are being created.
Yes.
Now, it's not going to be the same workforce population which is going to enter your organization and that's going to be your future. What is going to happen is, what you can do is, in a very practical manner,
Hmm.
are your families of role going to be different cluster? So
Hmm.
from all your operating model, your organizational structure, can there be some families of roles which could be only be working on site?
Hmm.
Can there be roles which can be only being work from home? Can there be a hybrid model altogether? And can some of your work be outsourced completely to the gig workforce? So very interesting things are emerging, and this is all being done to take care of the cost optimization. However much we say, the cost is central right now, and I think HR leaders are playing brilliant job to take care of the people concerned. But even our business guys are thinking very creatively to come up with options, work with HR leaders, and come up with a very different operating model, come
Right.
up with a workforce which is going to be a liquid workforce. In a simple manner, what is a liquid workforce? I am in HR, but I am in the pool of liquid workforce. Tomorrow, if need be, I can work in the marketing area. So
Right.
there is a common network of work which I can interchangeably use, so
Yes.
that there is no crisis if the situation comes and we have to manage certain things. There
Yes.
will be certain situations which can be taken care of.
Right.
I think one last thing I will consultants talk a lot, but I'll very quickly say one thing:
Yes.
culture.
Hmm.
The way we need to build our culture going forward is going to be very critical, and people
Yes.
have started reflecting on it. People have started working on it. People are
Yes.
making the shift. Competencies, capabilities are changing, and
Yes.
tomorrow, how you are going to do a performance management system, you'll be
Hmm.
surprised, it's going to be very different.
Right.
The
Right.
KPIs, KRAs, the productivity, everything is going to be different.
Yes.
I'm sounding as if this is going to be very long term, but we don't know till when
Yeah.
it will continue.
Right.
So I'll
Right.
pause here.
Hmm. Yes.
Thank
So,
you.
I want you to not go away without me asking you this question because I had saved it for you at the end. But I'm going to ask that right now because you brought in work from home and, workforce planning so significantly into the conversation. So I want to ask you, what's your own estimate? Do you believe with the way in which you're seeing your clients and other organizations react, would you agree that work from home is here to stay?
Yes. I Sorry, is this for Arun or is it
No, it's for you. It's for you. I'm
okay?
just asking, would you agree if when I say that work from home is here to stay, in the sense that, very significant part of work, most organizations are considering or reconsidering now that they've experienced this,
Yes.
which means, like you're rightly pointing out, which jobs really require to be able to get done internally, which ones can be done at home. Try and look at how it is that you can look at job families and find fluid
Yes.
workforces. So I'm just trying to figure from you, what is your estimate? Most organizations are going to change the way they work into the future,
Yes.
especially in the context of work from home.
Yeah. So, Sujaya, very quick point. Work from home for certain unique roles are absolutely possible.
Hmm.
And for certain industry, not so much for
Yeah.
manufacturing,
Yeah.
but for many others, it is very clearly possible.
Hmm.
We need to have our infrastructure built to support this work from home if we want to keep it as business as usual.
Right, right. Thank you, Vishali. I'm going to turn the part that Vishali ended with back to Arun at this point. Arun, Vishali touches upon a point
Yes,
that
thank
I'd
you.
sent you forward, that these are such great times to redefine your culture. So will you come in at this point to be able to tell us
Absolutely.
how can organizations introspect, use this time to introspect, use this time to
Sure.
reinvent. And even if we'd ended up creating some kinds of organizations, is this giving us the much needed and much required opportunity to reinvent ourselves?
Absolutely. Sujaya, I think you nailed it. It is a great opportunity for HR leaders, business leaders to rethink the whole purpose of business, the whole purpose of work. And I go back to what Rajesh said. It is really about life. It's not as if life is for business. It is really that business is for life. Work is for thriving life. So I think we are in a transition where from toxic work patterns, from a lot of stress and a lot of fragmentation, we are now slowly seeing the glimmering of a new culture, a new way of looking at business. So I think it's great time for HR leaders and others to reinvent business. Now, what does that mean specifically? I think it means, number one, a lot more focus on the kind of work that Vaishali said. It's no longer going to be, set roles and set boundaries and set things, but work which is a lot more flexible, a lot more gig economy kind of thing, a lot more focus on what is the value that I'm creating. Not how much time have I put in, how much money am I earning, but how much value am I creating for myself and my customers. And I think this will require a lot of re-education of the people who are losing jobs.
Right.
Can we help them to redefine work? Can we help them to find what gives them joy? Can we help them find their ikigai, their most joyful work, and facilitate their building a career, a second innings around that?
Right.
Even people who are coming out of colleges. I mean, it's not just going into a cushy job and earning a salary. The question we have to ask them is, what is the value you're creating? And the moment we ask what is the value you're creating, we have to talk about values. We have to talk about purpose. We have to talk about what is the purpose of life. And we can never find meaning and purpose unless we're doing something outside of ourselves, unless we are thinking in terms of service. Which means, again, just like we are thinking about customers, just like any business thinks about its customers, can we HR leaders really think about
I think we seem to have lost Arun's voice for a bit.
Sorry, I think, can you hear me
I
now?
think just go 30 seconds back and repeat what you said because we lost you for a bit.
Yeah. So I was saying the beautiful examples that Milind, Rajesh, and Raju gave us are examples of deep compassion and empathy for people.
Yes.
And I think every single person, whether it is a business leader or an HR leader or anyone, has to have that sort of compassion. And I
Right.
think one very, very important thing I'd like to quote Dr. T.V. Rao a few days back. He said, it is time for HR leaders to take leadership and show the way towards a more sustainable, spiritually fulfilling, and socially just way of leading and living.
Right.
Sujaya, this is the time to make that happen.
Right.
And one big change that's happening in the culture and is getting fostered by what we are seeing is
Yes.
coming out of silos. Huge
Yes.
amount of collaboration, huge amount of bonding. Very quick example, in Pune, we're doing some work for relief operations for people, who don't have food. 25 NGOs, 67 activists are all collaborating on WhatsApp to find where NGO are, where we are. It's just seva, seva, seva. So I think this is an opportunity for huge shifts. And I think the shifts are from silo and waste to war on waste, from competing with each other to completing each other, and from money, money, money to value, value, value. What's the value?
Yeah,
I'll
good
stop.
point. Good points. Thank you. I think at this point, I want to check with Suneet. Do we have TV Rao in the audience?
Yes, we do.
Yeah, can we try and bring him in? So I think this is very opportune to have TV Rao with us on this webinar. So I'm going to try and bring Dr. Rao in. Can we unmute Dr. Rao? Yeah, Dr. Rao, this is, can we have his video on as well? Sir, do you want to put your video on? I'm sure the audience would be delighted to be able to have you on this webinar.
Hi, well, I'm
Yes.
enjoying listening to each one of them. I'm very impressed with the concept which Vaishali talked about, liquid. So it gave me the concept that I think in future there should be a lot more versatile managers.
Yes.
I'm totally in sync with what Arun has said.
Yes.
I think this is the time entire approach. I think most organizations, every organization is meant to serve people.
Yes.
Somewhere down the line, they have forgotten the main objective, means, which is the profit, has become the end in itself. And that is where I think we have faltered. And I think COVID-19 has brought back to surface the
Yes.
need for revisiting the main purpose for which every single organization is meant for people.
Right.
I would say people first. I mean, that is the way I look at it. So
Yes.
there is no alternative, and that is where HR has a phenomenal role to play.
Absolutely.
Thanks. Thank you, TV.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir.
Your
Thank you for
comments.
coming in and adding to the conversation in such a brilliant way. Thank you. So I think with that, I want to be able to include some of the comments that we are seeing in the chat box so we don't lose sight of that. There are also some questions here which maybe we can look at. I think there is a question around work from home. I'm going to try and direct this one to Raju, Rajesh, Milind. Shashank Srivastav is asking, work from home, which is a new technique that came into existence unexpectedly and by chance, but looking towards its success in the industry, can it be obtained, or can it be ascertained as a general policy by companies even after COVID-19 pandemic gets over? What can be the advantages or disadvantages of being able to make this something that is part of the working policy within organizations?
Rajesh, you would like to take that?
Rajesh, do you want to respond to that?
Thanks, Sujaya. Yeah, of course. I mean, I'll be brief just to ensure that everybody has the airtime. It's here to stay, undoubtedly here to stay. But the real classic tussle is, it works very well in the service industry, but in the manufacturing and the real industry, where you need to have a lot of machine interface, it does cause issues. But that does not mean that you cannot do, a few things away from that. But work from home is going to definitely alter the way, at least leadership bandwidth is concerned, decision making, and most importantly, I must admit, with complete confession, that it has broken a huge myth and a mindset that we all need to be physically out there and seeing each other, do meetings and take decisions. I think this platform of really connecting from home has brought in a lot of efficiency, this mindset, which is classically a leadership mindset, has got broken. So it was never an issue that was actually, the issues were always there. The requests were always there. Why not more telecommuting? Why not more work from home? But I think it was more of a leadership mindset, which has actually gone into a confession where people have, begin to admit it's here to stay for sure. But the challenges of the real world do not get addressed completely. Yeah, but I think a huge part of learning, training, skilling will move to digital. So that part will actually ensure even in the real world. So that particular tenet is going to be strong there. I'll leave it at this. I'm sure there are further builds that will come from the others.
Yes. So I'm going to, at this point, just throw this open to anyone in the panel. This has been such an incredible time to be able to, demonstrate and spot resilience. And, resilience going to be, such a central theme for what we call leadership or leadership behavior going forward. I'm just interested to know, what are the ideas that are coming to your own mind on how leadership attributes have shifted, if at all, during this phase? I mean, what are we now focusing on more within organizations? What are the, what are the ideas already emerging in terms of finding your future leaders or your high potential people at a time like this? What are you spotting? What are you looking for? If we're out of the crisis mode, we can start thinking more sort of constructively and creatively around developing the organization and working during the recovery phase. Sure. I'm just trying to figure out, are there ideas emerging already around this, which is what constitutes leadership now?
Yeah. So, Sujaya, one of the things that we're seeing is that in such crises, the capacity to remain calm, to remain positive, to remain centered in deep faith in yourself and in your people and in life is an extremely important quality for all leaders to have. And that we have found comes from the capacity to take pauses, the capacity to be silent. And so what we are recommending to all the leaders we work with is take time to be still, take time to be silent. Because even when the mind cannot find the answers, what I've seen is when you're still, when you're just silent and you're surrendered to life as a whole, you suddenly find intuitive answers, you find guidance. And when a group of people sit together in silence, together as one unit who are surrendered to life, miracles happen. So I think I would say the capacity to reclaim the power within ourselves, the capacity to connect with that and be that is the most important quality for leaders, which will help clarity, conviction, courage, and resilience.
Super. Yeah, Ankit, you wanted to add to this?
Like the way Arun mentioned it, that is the time to take a look back. I feel this is a time for leaders not to be leaders. This is a time to actually delegate leadership responsibilities to a bunch of competent people and trust them. Make small task force, and I'm being very pragmatic and I'm very practical at the grassroots level. Make small task force, break chunks of big problem into small chunks, let those task force work upon them, come up with practical ideas and implementation and maybe execute. And leaders need to just be there as backup, as a safety net. Stop being leaders all the time.
Right. You're saying it's the end of the heroic leader. We've come to the era of the end of the heroic leader now.
Because you have extra stars on your shoulders here doesn't mean you feel that you must lead all the time. This is the time to encourage a second layer of leaders, because what will happen? Two things. One, you will instill confidence that we can do it. And the good point that Milind and Rajesh mentioned so eloquently about building that rapport and going to reach people and over-communicate. And Milind, I don't agree that there's anything like over-communication, sir. You are doing a great job of communicating. Now, this type of approach of a task force which leaders supervise and mentor will have two major impacts. One, involvement of people, trust and involvement. Second, they have a purpose. And what Arun and Dr. T.V. Rao were mentioning, if I live for something, I have hope. If I'm just living for that stupid paycheck, whether it will come or not, I will lose hope every 27th of the month. We got to come out of theory and make sure that people live for something. Now, okay, salaries may come, but this is the time for leaders to make sure that people feel I'm doing something. And I like the way Arun put it. You've got to, and this talk on purpose and all that was very theoretical all this time. I personally feel this is the time to practice it. And what an opportunity.
Yes.
So tell our people that you have something to do, my friend. You may
Yes.
be 3 stars less than me, but you are as important. Come and join me.
Yes.
Leaders
Yes.
must step back.
Yes, absolutely. Rajesh, can we have your view? Yes.
Yeah, so yeah, I'm going to be very mindful of time. I'm just going to build it in 1 minute. Let me see if
Yes.
I can do it. Individual success, I think we've been banking on four. Imagine a flower with four petals and a stem.
Mm.
Yeah, we've been always talking about skill,
Mm.
will,
Mm.
culture, and performance, which actually drives individual success. Going on from here, I would put the stem as transformation. It's
Mm.
not change management anymore.
Mm.
Yeah, transformation. Sorry, I'll
What was it?
repeat.
He's asking you to
I'll,
repeat four petals of the flower. Yeah.
yeah, skill,
Will. Yeah.
will, performance,
Yeah.
and culture.
Mm.
This COVID-19 taught us to build the stem, the transformation, where we each of them, we are building hard skills, mind you, because skills, we are hard skills we're building. We're building resilience, tenacity, and all that, all those come under the will category. We are ensuring that performance is at a peak in terms of a situation like this. We are also ensuring that there are cultural tenets which are undergoing a change. We are redefining the fabric of the entire workplace. That being true, the transformation, that capability that we're building right now is the innovation. It's here to stay. And if we can institutionalize this into capability building model, I think it's all set out for future success. So I think the stem and the flower is what I would give as the simplest, virtual demonstration of how you
Yeah.
can remember this.
Yeah. Nice analogy. Thank you for that. I think I'm going to at this stage, ask you a question around health, employee wellness and health, and what is the work you believe organizations should be doing in the space at this time for the HR who are on this panel discussion. What indeed do you think has worked in the context of your own organization? And I'm talking about fear, anxiety related to what's going to come up in the future, what just happened, how everyone's vulnerable to this. You don't know when it is going to be you next. So in the midst of a global pandemic, what is the responsibility organizations have towards employee health? And I'm interested to ask this because we're not hearing of very great focus or practices in this space. And I'm saying if we've paid lip service to this all along and we've not done too much in this space, then this is the time. And I'm saying that best organizations say we have yoga classes, or that we do, we get our people to be able to meditate, and we have Zumba classes. And I'm just saying, I'm not talking about that. I'm just saying really taking health as a very significant risk and working around that within organizations and having some very visible contribution towards employee health. So just interested to know your views on this.
Jaya, I would like to go on this and then I'll drop off the call because I have another call at
Yes.
5. So just a couple of things that I want to say. These are moments when people want to talk to somebody and they want somebody to listen to. And
Yes.
it can be their immediate manager, it can be their immediate supervisor. So the very simple thing that we can do is to open our channels of communication with each and every one. And I think this gives a lot of comfort to the people. So this is a simple and it doesn't. The other thing is that a lot of times people also need professional help because not everyone can handle the anxiety. I think giving the access to some talking to psychologists or people who are counselors has also really proven to be very, very helpful, at least in our situation, where people can actually talk about and we all discussed, Rajesh and Milind and Arun, everyone referred, and Akhil also, in terms of what is it that will really get people to be, because it's a new normal for most of people. We are staying at home, we don't know how to deal with this new normal of life. So a lot of counseling is required, even in the families, how to manage their time, how to balance the priorities, both for if two spouses were working, how do they do it? So I think opening these channels of communication and being available, at least in our case, has helped us a lot.
Right. Remain open and be communicative, and have an individual orientation towards health. All right. Milind, what would you like to add to that?
I think clearly, to my mind, mental health will play a very, very important role here. And how do we bring in optimism? So a lot of work needs to be done on the mental framework Dr. Tal Ben Sahar's work, he speaks about energy management. And Ikigai, as Arun was referring to, also speaks about the entire energy which you get. So I would feel when you look at health of employees, how do you make people more optimistic? So a lot of work needs to be done on looking at the brighter side of life,
Right.
and completely staying away from this negativity and something which will end our lives and our jobs, etc. I think that's one part. Second, obviously, I would genuinely feel physical health will continue to play a very important role. So any
Right.
format which a company can afford, I think we should continue to invest in people's physical health. Work from home, I think on one side looks very bright, but it has its own impact on the health of the employees also, because
Right.
you're practically not getting up from your place for hours together.
Right.
I would go a step further. I think it's not only the employee health. I would actually bring holistic focus on the family and the
Yes.
health of entire family, because I think it is this ecosystem which is going to generate a lot of energy and positivity for the employee. So,
Right. Right.
Yeah, so
While
Sujay,
you're
may I
yes,
just take 30
yes,
seconds? I think
yes, yes.
what we've found is that a simple change in diet and a
yeah,
simple change in breathing and just dropping sugar
Yes.
has remarkable impacts on the energy and well-being of people.
absolutely.
I think we need to educate people and their families about this. Stopping processed food, having more greens, just having more moringa leaves. Very few people know that the drumstick leaves are the world's most powerful food, but very few people know this.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
simple things like this can make a huge difference.
Sure. Akhil, you wanted to make a point.
I go back, during the early crisis in Motorola.com, which was a very severe crisis, we realized that our employee assistance program clocked in something like 46 to 47% increase use. Most of us and many organizations here are not even aware or prepared to provide professional counseling that somebody was mentioning just now, that there must be a phone call away confidential where people can talk about their anxiety and issues, because suicidal tendencies and depression, etc., are very common outcome of such a crisis. Now, physical health, of course, is important, but not many people would think of about the mental peace and the counseling. Now, maybe a forum like ours can actually refer some people without any obligation or liability and form counselors group who can then be available to industry.
We just
Right?
did that, Akhil. We had a webinar on mental health day before yesterday, and we've offered pro bono mental health services to everyone who was on that webinar, whoever registered on the webinar. And I'd
By
like to
qualified
mention
counselors.
that, yeah,
By,
we've partnered with someone called Inner Hour, and we've offered it to everybody who was on the webinar. And we're happy to extend it to you as well, everyone who's on this webinar, to be able to offer you. LNOT Roundtable has associated with Inner Hour to be able to offer mental health services to its members. So we're happy to be able to extend it to anyone who's on this webinar as well. In fact, I wanted to take this opportunity to be able to talk about, the way in which everyone's going to now experience the next wave of COVID-19. And we don't know, increasingly, perhaps going by the trend in other countries who've been ahead on the curve as compared to us, that you suddenly have more and more people who actually get the COVID-19. And I wanted to be able to call out an advisory which came in from World Health Organization, which is around mental health. And I want to be able to just ask you to indulge me. And I know we've exceeded 5 o'clock. We're almost at 5:05. So quick check with everyone. We are continuing because we started late. So we'll try and close this in the next, hopefully, 5 to 7 minutes. But I want you to stay with me as I read the advisory of the World Health Organization. And this is only to be able to point out that there are a few things we still need to be prepared for as a community around mental health. So just stay with me as I read this. And it says COVID-19 has and is likely to affect people from many countries in many geographical locations. When referring to people with COVID-19, do not attach the disease to any particular ethnicity or nationality. Be empathetic to all those who are affected in and from any country. People who are affected by COVID-19 have not done anything wrong, and they deserve our support, compassion, and kindness. And the second point says, do not refer to people with the disease as COVID-19 cases, victims, or COVID-19 families or the diseased. They are people who have COVID-19, people who are being treated for COVID-19, or better still, people who are recovering from COVID-19. And I like the third one really, to be able to refer to people who get COVID-19 as people who are recovering from COVID-19. And I point this out because I think we still have a lot of work to do as a society on the sheer stigma attached to people who are already suffering. And now increasingly in our vicinity we'll know more people who have this, and it's important to know how we're going to treat people who have this, because there are societies who don't want people who have COVID-19. There are families who have a stigma because somebody in their family was found to have COVID-19. It's very important that we create a vocabulary around this which is respectful. And so the World Health Organization says people who have COVID-19 are people who have COVID-19, or people who are being treated for COVID-19, or people who are recovering from COVID-19. And after recovering from COVID-19, their life will go on with their jobs, families, and loved ones. It is important to separate a person from having an identity defined by COVID-19 in order to reduce the stigma. So I've just taken the opportunity to plug this in. We did bring this up during our mental health webinar, but I think it's ever so important to be prepared as a society, especially around issues of stigma and alienation. This will just become one more reason of dividing and fragmenting rather than joining and collaborating like Arun was pointing out earlier. So I think with that, I know we've exceeded time. I just want to be able to bring in Ajay Venkatesh. I think he's been very active on the chat, and he also had a question. So if you can, Suneet, bring in Ajay Venkatesh. Ajay, you had a question around, are there creative solutions organizations can have around reducing manpower costs? So can we bring Ajay Venkatesh in, please? Suneet, is Ajay still there?
Yes, I'm just bringing him on.
All right. Okay, great stuff. Hi, Ajay. All right, for the benefit of everyone who may not know him, Ajay Venkatesh is part of KPMG. He's been very instrumental with the survey that we've sent out to all of you. And I think he's had a couple of questions. So Ajay, I'm going to hand this over to you to be able to ask the question directly to whichever panelist you want to direct this to. Ajay, are you there? Okay, I'm going to ask the question on his behalf. What will be the top 2 cultural changes you would want to drive in your organizations going forward?
May I respond?
Yes, please. Yes, please. Please do.
Okay, Sujay, I think one of the things that, one of the 2 would be a spirit of value innovation. And let me explain what I mean. Really inquiring from customers and employees what is of value to them, and then finding ways to serve that. And you'll find that sometimes you can enhance value and reduce the cost at the same time. Now, this is needed on the customer facing end and on the employee facing end.
Yes.
And I think once we have the framework of value innovation, where we say, what's of value to you? What can we reduce, do, and innovate around that? We'll reduce cost, enhance value, both for customers and for employees.
Yes.
So this is one change. The second one, I would say, is a huge amount on positivity, on mindfulness,
Yes.
on being anchored in faith, and learning the culture of silence and being in tune with life. I think these 2 things will transform the inner and the outer work of all our work.
Right. Akhil, you had something to say here.
I would say that this will lead to a strong culture of alignment.
Right.
One being external, which Arun just referred, that am I adding value or am I just giving service and product? And something we have to introspect as to what is considered value. So that is external. The internal part, and especially for the HR community, we must and we will have to willy-nilly redefine why we are there. It is not to provide a service. And the alignment with the line managers and the business and the end result of the business should and will come in big way to HR community. It's no more just going to be having some chatbots and feel very nice about having technology. And I know I'm being critical of HR, but as a part of the HR community, I can afford to do that. I think we'll have to learn, and the true cultural change will happen that those who don't align will
Yes.
not survive. Will
Right.
not survive.
Yes.
So we have to understand that we got to align within the organization with the purpose of the organization and make people's solution as a contribution and align with the outside world for sustenance of the organization itself. So I would put only one word to the future culture. If you're not aligned, you will be dinosaurs.
Right. Right. Rajesh, do you want to take this? Yes. What two cultural changes would you want to drive within your own
Yeah.
organization?
So there are four levers that we attribute as our culture, which is customer centricity, inclusive growth, technology, and collaboration. I'll take the customer centricity part of it and technology and blow it up a bit more.
Hmm.
On the customer centricity part of it, what we realize right now is we're not going to do things for the customer or going to do things along with the customer. Here is an opportunity for us to think ahead of the customer because nobody is clear of the evolving world. When the world is so blurred, can you start thinking ahead of the customer and lead to a solution? So that's one cultural change that
Right.
we're going to lead. The
Right.
second one is all of us have been talking about tech, but classically this digital game that we all are exposed to in the last decade or so, which is really getting intensified.
Right.
The tech part of it is, all along, tech has always been something which has been enabling business.
Right.
Now the horse is ahead of the cart. Digital is going to lead business from here on. I think those two tenets are the big one.
Yeah.
And the third one, which actually brings it into the leadership fold, is all about leadership also needs to know how to skill themselves. It's not just leadership development anymore.
Yeah.
They need to build some amount of hard skills. Yeah.
Yes.
And this digital and tech world of today, combined with the adversities that we're facing, they need to reskill themselves rather
Yes.
than talking about skilling the entire organization.
Right.
I think I'll leave you with that.
Yeah, they're good points, great points. Milind, any final words that you want to say before we close out the webinar?
No, I think quickly on culture, overused and abused word of empowerment. And,
Yeah.
We all feel we empower as leadership team, we feel we empower. But in
Yes.
all surveys, we actually get feedback that we don't empower. So
Yeah.
maybe it's a great opportunity. Work from home accidentally has thrown this opportunity to us. So I think this shift, where we start trusting people, we give autonomy, and we finally live up to the word empowerment. I think
Yeah.
that's something which will, to my mind, become priority.
Yes.
Second, relationship, because as you go with distance and you are not face to face, there is a shift which I see which happens from professional relationship through work driven through personal relationship, because you
Yeah.
are going away, you are not face to face anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
How do you start building strong bonds with your employees? And third, guided conversation, I think, as a culture, because you will need, in absence of many employees not coming face to face, can you actually build culture of conversations and which are guided?
Yeah, good points, great points. So clearly, I think what we're getting on culture is that the command and control styles is passé. You can't pay lip service to empowerment anymore. You got to get into the trenches with the people and work together. I didn't hear very much about societal contributions and whether that's going to be a significant part of how it is that we want to be seen, we want to be positioned, how we want our employees to be able to see us. But I think this has been such a fabulous conversation. Thank you very much, Rajesh Padmanabhan of Wellspun, Akhil Basrai of Akhil Basrai Consulting, Arun Baklu of Pragati, and Milind Apte of SIAT. Thank you so much. Thank you to Raju Mistry, she had to drop off, of Cipla, who's doing, again, very incredible work. Vishali Dongri of KPMG, who's also been just ever so outstanding. Thank you everyone for being on this webinar. We've really enjoyed the some of the conversations which are in the chats. I think they're addressed to some of you here. So if you do have the chance to spend some time responding to that, this is a wonderful audience, very active in terms of all the comments here. We tried taking as many questions as we could. We'll try and make sure that the remaining get answered offline if they're required. But quick two announcements for everyone. The HR response team of the LNOD Roundtable, should you need any expert advice pro bono, reach out to us. We're happy to be able to help you. Those of you who believe you need for yourselves or people in your family or in your teams, you need mental health support pro bono all through the lockdown. We've tied up with Inner Art to be able to organize that for you. And last but not the least, I want to be able to make a point on the KPMG survey that we partnered on HR best practices. Please participate, including the panelists. Please contribute and participate so that, we have a rich amount of data that KPMG is able to convert into a best practices survey report, which they will make available to everyone. You would have the link now sitting in your inboxes. So use the next 20 minutes and do the community a favor by contributing your ideas and your practices to everyone so that they can access this for their own organizations. If you participate, you will then be entitled to, by the 23rd of this month, to a best HR practices report from 150 organizations. So please participate and learn and contribute to the learning of others. Thank you, everyone. This has been very insightful, wonderful panelists. Thank you again.
Thank you, Sujaya, for wonderful moderation. Very well moderated.
Thank you. Thank you, Sujaya.
Bye. Take
Wonderful.
care.
Yeah, be safe, everyone. Take care.
Thank you. You
Bye.
too. Be
Bye.
safe.
Bye-bye.
Bye.